Can you taste a memory? Yes, but only to an extent. Science confirms that recalling flavors can activate the brain's sensory regions, though it does not fully replicate the act of eating. We can get close to mentally tasting a strawberry, but not perfectly. A well-trained memory can summon the sweetness, slight tartness, and aromatic notes, but it won't fully replicate the experience of biting into a fresh one. This is because taste is not just about flavor. It involves texture, temperature, and mouthfeel, all of which are difficult for the brain to recreate without direct stimulation. However, through mindful eating, sensory training, and strong emotional connections, we can improve our ability to recall flavors with greater depth and accuracy. Strengthening taste memory isn't just a mental exercise. It's a way to preserve experiences, cultures, and even flavors that may not always be accessible in the future. In a world where natural foods face extinction and engineered flavors dominate our diets, refining our ability to remember taste could become more than a skill. It may be a way to keep the essence of real food alive, even when it's no longer on our plates. We'll get to that next, and then give you some helpful tips to improve your taste memory and recall. Your brain treats taste like a multi-sensory experience, not just a single sensation. When you eat, your gustatory cortex, taste processor, hippocampus, memory hub, and amygdala, emotion center, work together to lock in flavors. That's why a childhood snack can hit with nostalgia like a time machine, while bland, forgettable meals just disappear from memory. A study in Neuroscience Letters found that recalling a taste activates these brain regions, but not as strongly as actually eating the food. It's like remembering a song versus hearing it live. You get the essence, but not the full concert. Your brain evolved to remember flavors for survival. Sweet meant energy, bitterness warned of poison, and umami signaled protein. Studies in current biology show that negative food memories last longer, which is why one bad oyster can turn you off seafood for years. Even before birth, early exposure to flavors via amniotic fluid or breast milk shapes lifelong food preferences. If you grew up on bold spices or fresh fruit, those flavors stay hardwired. But if your diet was mostly processed food, your brain may struggle to recognize and recall natural flavors. Hyper-processed foods don't just change your diet, they retrain your brain. Research in cell metabolism found that engineered flavors override natural taste recall, making whole foods taste boring by comparison. This happens because ultra-processed foods flood your brain with dopamine, numbing your natural response to subtle, complex flavors. Over time, you forget what real food should taste like, just like how sugary sodas make plain water feel too bland. Since 80% of taste comes from smell, your nose is the key to unlocking lost flavors. That's why a single whiff of freshly baked cookies can bring back childhood memories, even if you haven't eaten them in years. A study in the Journal of Neuroscience found that people with smell loss, like from COVID-19, had weaker taste recall, proving that no smell gives weaker flavor memory. So if you want to sharpen your ability to remember tastes, train your nose. Drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy suppress appetite by dampening food's reward system, making once-loved foods unappealing or forgettable. A 2023 study in Nature Medicine found that people on these medications reported less enjoyment of food, with some even forgetting to eat entirely. While it's unclear if these drugs directly weaken taste recall, they reduce the emotional connection to food, which could mean fewer memorable meals. If flavor no longer excites you, does it still leave a lasting imprint in your brain? Losing access to certain foods isn't just bad for our diets, it erases cultural memories. Studies in the Journal of Experimental Psychology show that flavors tied to traditions and identity are stored more deeply in our brains. If climate change wipes out cacao, coffee, or heirloom fruits, future generations won't just miss out on the taste, they'll lose a piece of history. This is called sensory extinction, where flavors fade not just from plates, but from collective memory. Sensory extinction refers to the gradual disappearance of certain tastes, smells, and other sensory experiences from human memory due to environmental changes, industrialization, or cultural shifts. While this concept has not been formally defined in scientific literature, it aligns with established research on cultural amnesia, biodiversity loss, and sensory adaptation. The idea suggests that when foods, spices, or environmental scents disappear due to climate change, deforestation, or industrial agriculture, future generations may lose the ability to recall or even conceptualize these sensory experiences. There is no direct scientific proof that sensory extinction exists in a measurable way, but historical and archaeological evidence supports the idea that human diets and consequently sensory perceptions have changed over time, leading to the loss of certain flavors, smells, and even genetic adaptations related to taste. For example, archaeological studies on ancient diets show that early humans consumed a much broader range of plants and animals than modern societies, many of which have since vanished. Analysis of Neanderthal dental plaque from 50,000 years ago, published in Nature 2017, revealed that these early humans consumed bitter-tasting plants that modern humans largely avoid due to our preference for milder, sweeter flavors. This suggests that entire taste profiles have been lost over time due to agricultural and dietary shifts. Similarly, genetic studies on taste receptors show that modern humans have lost some ability to perceive bitter compounds, likely because these flavors became less relevant for survival as food sources changed. Another example comes from historical food biodiversity loss. The domestication of crops, industrial agriculture, and monocultures have drastically reduced the number of plant varieties consumed today. The Arc of Taste, a global project cataloging endangered food varieties, estimates that 75% of global crop diversity was lost in the 20th century alone. This means that many flavors once familiar to past civilizations, such as rare heirloom fruits, diverse grains, and unique regional spices, are no longer widely available or even remembered. Over centuries, these forgotten foods contribute to what could be termed sensory extinction. In modern experimental psychology, studies on olfactory memory suggest that smell and taste are deeply tied to personal and cultural memory. But once exposure to a particular scent is lost, the ability to recall it diminishes significantly. A 2020 study in the Journal of Neuroscience found that individuals who lost their sense of smell due to COVID-19 struggled to recall the taste of foods they previously loved. This suggests that without repeated exposure, sensory memories fade, supporting the idea that if certain foods or flavors disappear from the environment, future generations may be unable to recall them at all. To prove sensory extinction definitively, researchers would need to conduct longitudinal studies comparing genetic, archaeological, and cultural records of taste perception across generations. Case studies could involve DNA analysis of ancient populations to track changes in taste receptor genes, historical records of culinary traditions to identify lost flavors, and experimental studies on sensory memory decay over time. While the concept of sensory extinction remains a theoretical framework rather than a proven phenomenon, evidence from archaeology, genetics, and cultural anthropology suggests that human sensory experiences are not static and that some flavors, smells, and tastes may already be irretrievably lost. If we let processed foods, climate change, and artificial flavors replace real ones, we're not just changing diets, we're erasing taste memories for good. Once a flavor is gone, how long before we forget it ever existed? Your ability to taste and remember food is more than just a brain trick. It's part of what makes us human. The question is, will we fight to keep it? The ability to recall tastes isn't just a novelty, it's a survival skill, a cultural touchstone, and in our modern world of crises, an urgent necessity. Humans evolved to rely on their senses to navigate an unpredictable environment. Taste was never just about pleasure, it was a tool for survival. Long before expiration dates, we needed to recognize freshness, spoilage, toxicity, and safety. Sweetness signaled energy-rich carbohydrates, bitterness warned of potential poison, and umami suggested protein sources essential for health. The ability to recall these sensations was a matter of life and death. If an ancient human ate a berry that made them sick, remembering its taste could prevent disaster. This instinct still operates today, but it competes with an overwhelming landscape of engineered flavors designed to manipulate our cravings. As ultra-processed foods flood our diets, some researchers suggest we may be losing touch with real food, real flavors, and the ability to recall and appreciate them. To understand the importance of food recall, picture this. It's 1965, and you step into a dimly lit Italian-American restaurant, the kind where Dean Martin croons from a jukebox and the air is thick with the scent of garlic, simmering tomatoes, and freshly baked bread. A red and white checkered tablecloth stretches beneath your fingers. Waiters in crisp white shirts carry steaming plates of spaghetti carbonara, the yolk-rich sauce clinging to thick pasta, flecked with black pepper and pancetta. In the background, couples sip Chianti from round-bottom bottles wrapped in straw. The scent of anise lingers from someone's after-dinner sambuca. Now, close your eyes. Can you taste it? The buttery, salty pecorino? The faint sweetness of the tomato sauce? The subtle bitterness of olive oil? For many, the answer is no, or at least not vividly. While taste memory is real, the idea that artificial flavors actively degrade our ability to remember natural food is still unproven. However, scientists do know that ultra-processed foods can alter our brain's reward system, conditioning us to crave intense engineered flavors over more subtle natural ones. This shift may not erase our memories of real food, but it does change our perceptions, making industrially produced flavors feel more satisfying than those found in nature. There's another problem. Some of our most beloved flavors may soon exist only in memory. The foods we take for granted are vanishing. Consider eggs. Once a reliable staple, avian flu outbreaks have devastated poultry farms, leading to shortages and skyrocketing prices. Coffee faces a similar fate. According to a 2019 study published in Science Advances, rising temperatures and deforestation threaten over 60% of wild coffee species, putting the future of the morning ritual millions depend on at risk. Chocolate, the world's most beloved sweet, is on an even more precarious path. By 2050, changing climate conditions could make cacao farming impossible in much of West Africa, which supplies 70% of the world's chocolate. And then there's orange juice. Florida's citrus groves, once abundant, are being decimated by citrus greening disease, an incurable bacterial infection that has cut U.S. orange production in half. This is no distant concern. Climate change, monoculture farming, and emerging plant diseases are already reshaping the global food landscape. If these flavors become inaccessible, will future generations only know them as words on a page, unable to recall their depth and complexity? Training taste memory may not halt these losses, but it can preserve an archive of sensory experiences before they disappear from our plates. Beyond nostalgia, strengthening food memory has practical consequences. It can change the way we eat. The rise of weight loss drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro has revolutionized how people interact with food. These GLP-1 receptor agonists, originally developed for diabetes, suppress appetite by altering the brain's reward system. Many users report that foods they once loved suddenly become unappealing. Some even say they forget to eat. Research published in Nature Medicine suggests these drugs reduce cravings and make food less rewarding, though their impact on taste perception itself remains unclear. What is certain is that they change the emotional and sensory connection to food, dampening the brain's anticipation of flavor. For those who rely on food as a source of comfort or cultural connection, this shift can feel profound. If we dull our sensory experiences, do we lose something fundamental about being human? And then there's COVID-19, which has robbed millions of their sense of taste and smell, some permanently. Studies published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation confirm that the virus can damage the olfactory system, disrupting the way the brain processes flavor. For many, recovery is slow or incomplete, leaving them unable to recall tastes they once loved. Meanwhile, genetic conditions like congenital anosmia or neurological disorders like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's can strip people of their ability to enjoy food altogether. Research suggests that training taste memory early in life can help preserve this ability as we age. Some people swear they can taste something simply by remembering it. Science suggests they may not be imagining it, but there are limitations. While taste memory is real, it does not function the same way as actually experiencing food. Instead, recalling a flavor activates certain brain regions associated with taste, but it does not fully recreate the sensory experience. Research has found that taste memory is tied to the brain's sensory and emotional centers, particularly the gustatory cortex, which processes taste, and the hippocampus, which stores memories. A 2017 study in Neuroscience Letters showed that when participants recalled the taste of a specific food, brain scans revealed activity in these regions. However, the activation was less intense than when they actually consumed the food, suggesting we can recall the impression of taste, but not fully recreate it. This is similar to how we recall smells. More than any other sense, Smell and taste have strong ties to memory because they interact with the brain's limbic system, which governs emotions. This is why a smell or taste can bring back a powerful, deeply personal memory. Can we train our brain to recall taste more vividly? Absolutely. Just like I discussed in unlocking your visual memory, just like with other forms of memory, taste recall can be trained and strengthened. Certain techniques help sharpen our ability to recall flavors in greater detail, including Number 1. Mindful eating. Paying full attention to the taste, texture, and aroma of food strengthens sensory memory. Studies suggest that mindfulness increases sensory retention. Those who eat with focus recall flavors more accurately later. Number 2. Multisensory association. Pairing a taste with a strong visual or emotional experience can enhance recall. Example: a person who eats strawberries on a childhood picnic will likely have a stronger memory of their taste compared to someone who mindlessly eats them while watching TV. Number 4. Verbalization. Describing flavors aloud or writing them down improves recall. Professional wine tasters and chefs often describe flavors in intricate detail, which helps them retain sensory impressions longer. Number 5. Tasting exercises. Some researchers have experimented with training subjects to recall flavors using progressive exposure tasting of food, recalling it later, then retasting to compare accuracy. This method rewires the brain to store sensory details more effectively. Number 6. Flavor mapping. Break down flavors into basic components, sweet, salty, bitter, sour, umami, and subcategories, e.g., nutty, citrusy, floral, to help reconstruct it later. Number 7. Smell reinforcement. Since smell is key to taste, recalling the scent of food can help trigger taste memory. Try smelling similar foods. Number 8. Imagery and visualization. Close your eyes and vividly imagine eating the food, recalling texture, temperature, and aftertaste. So here's an exercise. Are you ready? Get your taste buds ready. Now grab some healthy and safe and organic food you can eat and mind any food allergies. Find a quiet, comfortable place where you can sit or lie down without distractions. Do not attempt this while driving or operating machinery. If possible, close your eyes to minimize visual distractions and allow yourself to focus inward. Start by taking a slow, deep breath in through your nose, filling your lungs completely, and then exhaling gently through your mouth. Repeat this process, letting each breath become slower and deeper, releasing any tension with each exhale. As you continue breathing deeply, shift your focus to your senses. Notice the feeling of the air on your skin, the sounds around you, any scents in the air, or the sensation of your body against the surface beneath you. Allow yourself to be fully present, simply observing these sensations without judgment. If thoughts arise, acknowledge them and gently bring your attention back to your breath and surroundings. Stay in this relaxed state for a few minutes before slowly opening your eyes, and if you're lying down, sit up before starting the challenge. Now, before you take that bite, mentally note where you are, and using all of your senses, record as much detail as possible. Apologies in advance to those who may not have access to all the senses described in this exercise. If any sense is unavailable to you, focus on the ones that are most vivid and accessible. Choose a food item, something fresh, flavorful, and safe for you to eat. Before tasting, take in your surroundings. Where are you? Are you at home, in a cafe, outdoors? Is the air warm or cool? What scents linger around you? Fresh coffee, cut grass, city streets? What sounds fill the space? Is music playing softly in the background, or is there the chatter of people nearby? Maybe it's silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator or the wind outside, or from this video and its background music. The goal is to imprint this moment into memory, connecting the taste of the food to everything around you. Now, bring your focus to the food itself. Sight. Observe its color, shape, and texture. Does the light catch its surface? Is it glossy, matte, textured? Touch. Hold it in your hands or feel it against your lips. Smooth, sticky, powdery, cool? Smell. Inhale deeply. Close your eyes if it helps. Does it remind you of something familiar? A childhood meal? A spice market? The ocean? Let the scent pull forward any associated memories or emotions. Sound. If the food makes noise crunching, sizzling, fizzing, take note. Sound is a powerful recall tool. Finally, take a bite. At first, don't chew, just let it sit on your tongue. What are the first flavors? Are they bright, mellow, sharp? As you begin to chew, notice how the taste evolves. Does it become sweeter, richer, more bitter? Try to identify the basic taste components: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, umami. Texture matters too. Is it airy, dense, crunchy, silky? How does it break down as you chew? Swallow and pay attention to the lingering aftertaste. Does it stay on your tongue, fade quickly, or leave a new layer of flavor behind? Prepare for your next step in advance of your next bite. Still recording the taste and other senses, close your eyes if it's safe to do so, and then finish your bite. But imagine that you're still recording and analyzing and tasting, at the same time recalling the actual memory. The bridge from recording the memory to its seamless recall should be fluid. After that deep focus, you may open your eyes. Congratulations! You've taken your first steps into a wider world. Remind yourself that you need to be ready to recall that memory fully in 5 minutes, so keep it close in your mind. Next is the memory recall process and strengthening your taste memory. Then, 5 minutes later, a short-term recall test. Pause and close your eyes. Can you still picture the food in your mind? Can you feel its texture, recall its scent, and recreate its taste? If some details are already slipping away, try using another sense to anchor them. Imagine holding the food again, hearing the sound it made, or smelling its aroma. Then, 5 minutes later, a short-term recall test. Pause and close your eyes. Can you still picture the food in your mind? Can you feel its texture, recall its scent, and recreate its taste? If some details are already slipping away, try using another sense to anchor them. Imagine holding the food again, hearing the sound it made, or smelling its aroma. Then, 30 minutes later, deepening the memory. Without checking notes, try to reconstruct the entire experience in your mind. Picture where you were, the ambient sounds, and how the food looked before you ate it. Recall its taste from beginning to end. What details are starting to fade? If something is missing, revisit your earlier description to reinforce it. Then, 2 hours later, the visualization challenge. Now, challenge yourself to go beyond taste. Can you recall the full experience? The setting, the background music, the temperature of the air? If the taste is harder to retrieve, use multisensory cues. Recall the smell first, then the texture, and see if the flavor returns. Then, 24 hours later, strengthening long-term memory. Try to recall the taste as soon as you wake up. How vivid is it? Describe it again in as much detail as possible. If necessary, reinforce the memory by reading your earlier notes, but resist the urge to retaste the food just yet. Over the next few days, revisit this memory regularly, increasing the time between recall sessions. Challenge yourself to reconstruct the flavor in full detail before consulting your notes. If possible, describe it to someone else as if they've never had it before. When you do eventually retaste the food, compare your memory to the actual experience. What did you get right? What was missing? By incorporating the full sensory experience, sight, smell, touch, sound, and environment, you build a richer, more detailed memory of taste. Over time, this practice will strengthen your ability to recall flavors vividly, making food experiences more immersive and meaningful. To keep this memory alive and to be able to recall as vivid of a taste memory as you can at will, without all the calories, regular and life commitment to repetition and scheduled recall is key. How'd you do on the challenge? Let us know your progress in the comments below. The most successful methods for memory and recall depend on how your brain encodes and retrieves information. So some may work better than others, or possibly combinations. Here are some of the best techniques. Spaced repetition. Reviewing information at increasing intervals, e.g. after 1 day, 3 days, 1 week, strengthens long-term memory. Apps like Anki or Quizlet can help. Elaborative encoding. Connecting new information to what you already know improves recall. For example, if learning a new fact related to a personal experience. Active recall. Instead of just rereading in your mind, test yourself on the material. This forces your brain to retrieve and strengthen neural pathways. The method of loci, memory palace, associating information with specific locations in a familiar place, helps with recall. This is used by memory champions. Chunking. Breaking information into smaller, meaningful groups, e.g., remembering a phone number as 555-321-6789 instead of 555-321-6789. 9. So, what are the proven limitations of taste memory? While we can improve our ability to recall flavors, there are biological and psychological limits. We can recall taste, but not the full experience. The texture, temperature, and mouthfeel of food contribute significantly to taste perception. Since these elements are harder to recreate mentally, the recalled flavor is often incomplete. Some tastes are more easily remembered than others. Familiar and emotionally significant flavors, e.g., childhood comfort foods, are easier to recall. Complex or subtle flavors, e.g., fine wine, layered spice blends, are harder to recall unless trained extensively. Time weakens taste memory. Studies suggest that taste memories decay faster than visual or auditory memories unless reinforced through repetition or emotional association or scheduled recall repetition. Highly processed foods may alter memory. Some research suggests that highly engineered flavors, e.g., artificial sweeteners, MSG, may override natural taste recall, conditioning us to crave artificial versions over real ones. Are some tastes easier to remember than others? Yes, and this depends on how our brain processes different types of taste stimuli. Basic tastes are easier to recall because they correspond to specific taste receptors on the tongue. Complex flavors, like the difference between vanilla and caramel, are harder to remember precisely because they involve a mix of aroma, texture, and secondary taste notes. We easily remember tastes tied to survival, e.g., sweetness for energy, bitterness for toxicity. Culturally significant foods, e.g., holiday meals, childhood dishes, also tend to be recalled more vividly. Strong, bold flavors, spicy, highly aromatic foods leave a stronger memory imprint than subtle ones. This is why cinnamon, chili, and coffee are often easier to recall than plain white rice or mild vegetables. We can get close, but not perfectly. A well-trained memory can summon the sweetness, slight tartness, and aromatic notes of a strawberry, but it won't replicate the full experience of biting into a fresh one. However, through mindful eating, sensory training, and strong emotional connections, we can improve our ability to recall flavors in greater depth. It's not just a mental exercise, it's a way to preserve experiences, cultures, and even flavors that may not always be accessible in the future. What if children were taught to eat slowly, deliberately, with full attention? Studies from the University of North Carolina suggest that mindful eating focusing on each bite rather than eating distractedly can reduce overeating, improve digestion, and enhance taste recall. In cultures where meals are slow, social rituals, like in Italy or Japan, obesity rates are lower. By teaching children to savor food, we give them a tool for life one that could prevent the health problems many of us now struggle with. This conversation isn't just about food, it's about power, politics, and survival. Every bite we take is a political act. The foods we choose, the corporations we support, the farming practices we enable. These all shape the world. In an era of climate collapse, deforestation, monocultural agriculture, and mass extinctions, the way we eat is more consequential than ever. We live in a time of upheaval wars rage. Misinformation spreads like wildfire, and those in power manipulate our choices in ways we often fail to notice. Yet one of the last freedoms we still possess, however compromised, is the ability to decide what we put into our bodies. Or at least that's what we're led to believe. In reality, much of what we eat is dictated by a handful of corporations prioritizing profit over health. I'll explore this further in my upcoming video. U.S. Foods vs. the World: Weight, Nutrition, Obesity, and the Hidden Costs of Our Diet, where we'll uncover why food in the U.S. is significantly less healthy than in the EU, and how money, power, and corporate consolidation, politics, and media shape what ends up on our plates. But for now, consider this. What if we approached our food choices with the same vigilance we bring to the ballot box? What if, instead of blindly consuming what's marketed to us, we reclaimed control over our taste, our health, and our history? This is where the Renaissance spirit comes in. Our mission is to rekindle curiosity, to challenge assumptions, to seek wisdom, whether through history, science, politics, or the art of food itself. If you believe in the power of knowledge, if you want to preserve flavors before they disappear, if you see the act of eating as a form of resistance against a system designed to dull your senses, then you are one of us. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video. Watch the Universal Declaration on Equality, Human Rights, and Justice, and take our quiz to see if you're a Renaissance spirit. history has not died. A personal note, if I may. As you may know, I want people to start to think about our place in culture, society, and politics. In these uncertain times, practicing reason, compassion, media literacy, and civic engagement is mandatory for all of us to safeguard not only our country, but humanity. We face existential threats, so I framed these thoughts into the Universal Declaration on Equality, Human Rights, and Justice, a talking point to get us thinking and talking about what a social contract is and what steps we all need to take next. Having written the document, I think it's also important to add a new right, and let me know what you think. The senses taste, smell, touch connect us not just to the world, but to our own memories, our histories, our cultures, and the deepest parts of what it means to be human. Yet even these are being taken from us, slowly, quietly, under the guise of economic necessity and corporate control. Coffee, chocolate, citrus. Simple joys but foundational ones are vanishing, not because they must, but because their scarcity is being accepted as inevitable and worse, as an opportunity for profit. The ultra-wealthy already hoard land, water, and wealth. Shall they now hoard flavor as well? Shall we allow them to sip the last true coffee while the rest of us drink synthetic substitutes, to let them enjoy chocolate while the world forgets what it once tasted like? The right to experience taste, memory, and cultural continuity is not frivolous, it is essential. The destruction of food diversity, the privatization of natural resources, and the loss of access to the fundamental building blocks of sensory experience are not accidents. They are choices made by those in power, by those who believe that what has belonged to all of humanity for centuries should now be reserved only for those who can afford it. But no government, no corporation, no entity has the right to hoard, privatize, or restrict access to essential foods and natural goods that have shaped civilizations, connected generations, and defined cultures. This right is not just about preserving resources, it is about preserving us. It is about ensuring that the future does not become dull, flavorless, and disconnected from its past. It is about acknowledging that to be fully human is to taste, to smell, to remember. We have allowed too much to be taken from us already. This, at least, we must fight to keep. If you believe in the power of knowledge, if you want to preserve flavors before they disappear, if you see the act of eating as an act of resistance, then you are one of us. Subscribe. Share this vision. Reclaim your right to taste, to memory, to history. The future does not have to be flavorless, but if we are not vigilant, it will be. Live the Renaissance spirit. And please share this vision with your friends. You're part of the movement. Thank you for belonging. And now, for part 2, a philosophical view of taste. As we discussed in part 1, you can get close to mentally tasting a strawberry, but not perfectly. A well-trained memory can summon the sweetness, slight tartness, and aromatic notes, but it won't fully replicate the experience of biting into a fresh one. This is because taste is not just about flavor. It involves texture, temperature, and mouthfeel, all of which are difficult for the brain to recreate without direct stimulation. But this raises deeper philosophical questions. If we cannot perfectly recall taste, can we ever truly own an experience? If reality is filtered through memory, do we ever truly experience anything as it is, or only as we later remember it? This echoes Henri Bergson's ideas on memory and perception. How much of taste is a cognitive construct rather than a direct, objective experience? These questions challenge the assumption that reality exists as an external, stable entity. If taste can never be fully retrieved but only reconstructed, then every sensory experience is, in a sense, fleeting, more a process of becoming than a fixed state. This ties into existential concerns. If our experiences cannot be permanently grasped, what does it mean to have lived them at all? John Locke, the empiricist philosopher, argued that our knowledge of the world comes through sensory impressions, but what happens when those impressions are gone? If we cannot hold on to a sensory experience indefinitely, do we ever truly own it? Or is every experience something that only exists in the moment of perception and then begins to decay? This is the paradox of memory and taste. The moment we consume food, it ceases to exist. The best we can do is hold on to an imperfect recollection, an imprint of something already lost. The act of eating, then, is not just about pleasure or survival. It is about letting go. In this way, taste is not only a biological necessity, but a philosophical reflection on impermanence. The modern food industry conditions us to crave engineered flavors, hyper-palatable combinations of sugar, salt, and fat designed to override natural taste preferences. This brings forth a troubling question. If our cravings are manipulated, are we truly free in our food choices? French philosopher Michel Foucault argued that power is not just imposed, but internalized. We come to desire the very things that control us. If artificial flavors rewire our taste preferences, do we gradually lose the ability to appreciate real food? And if our ability to recall authentic flavors deteriorates, are we losing something even deeper? Our connection to reality itself? This ties into Jean Baudrillard's idea of the hyper-real, a world where artificial copies replace authentic experiences. Just as processed foods mimic real flavors, our memories of those flavors may become shaped more by marketing and industrial production than by genuine sensory experience. What happens when a memory of real chocolate is replaced by an artificially constructed, mass-produced alternative? Does chocolate still exist as we once knew it, or has it been rewritten into something else? Existentialist thinkers like Sartre and Camus argued that human experience is defined by engagement with the world. If taste is one of the most immersive, sensory, and deeply personal ways we engage with reality, then the loss of taste, whether through processed food, pharmaceutical suppression, or climate change, is more than a physical change. It is an existential one. If we dull our sensory experiences, do we lose something fundamental about being human? Think of the way food is tied to rituals and memory: holiday meals, childhood flavors, or the smell of a familiar dish cooking in a loved one's kitchen. The loss of these experiences diminishes our connection to the past, to culture, and to personal history. This leads to a chilling thought. If our sensory world shrinks, does our sense of self shrink with it? If future generations never experience real chocolate, but only a synthetic alternative, will they ever know what they are missing? If flavors are erased by industrialization, do we lose part of the human experience without even realizing it? If taste is a political issue, does regaining control over what we eat become an act of resistance? Flavors are disappearing not because they must, but because their scarcity is being accepted as inevitable and even monetized. This ties into Marxist critiques of capitalism. The wealthy hoard resources, turning basic human pleasures like coffee, chocolate, and citrus into luxury goods, while the masses are left with artificial substitutes. Food corporations control the narrative of taste, redefining what is normal and desirable based on profit motives, not human experience. No government, corporation, or entity has the right to hoard, privatize, or restrict access to essential foods and natural goods that have shaped civilizations, connected generations, and defined cultures. Philosopher Hannah Arendt argued that freedom is tied to action. If we want to reclaim control over our sensory world, we must actively resist the forces that manipulate and limit our experiences. In this context, mindful eating is not just about taste, it is about autonomy. This video is not just about taste memory, it is about memory itself, cultural continuity, and the fragility of sensory experience. It challenges us to ask, is taste a fundamental part of being human? If flavors vanish from the world, can we still claim to remember them? Is it possible to preserve the sensory past in a world that prioritizes convenience and profit over authenticity? If the ability to experience real food is slowly being stripped from us, then reclaiming taste is a form of resistance. Just as we fight for the right to free speech, bodily autonomy, and political self-determination, perhaps we must also fight for the right to sensory authenticity, to experience the world as it was meant to be, rather than as it is engineered to be. In a world where reality itself is becoming a construct, the ability to taste, to remember, and to truly experience may be among the last freedoms we have left. You are part of the movement. Subscribe. Share this vision. Reclaim your right to taste, to memory, to history. The future does not have to be flavorless, but if we are not vigilant, it will be. Thank you for watching part 2 of Savor the Memory, the Philosophy of Taste. This video serves as a gateway into the broader intellectual mission of the Renaissance spirit, bridging the seemingly simple act of taste recall with profound discussions on history, culture, politics, and the future of human experience. It exemplifies how sensory perception is not just a biological function, but a reflection of deeper societal, philosophical, and environmental realities, connecting the personal with the political, the past with the future. Just as the Renaissance was a revival of lost knowledge and a catalyst for the Enlightenment, this video challenges viewers to awaken their awareness of what they consume, what they remember, and what they stand to lose if they do not act. In the same way that understanding ancient Rome illuminates the complexities of modern civilization, reflecting on the disappearance of flavors reveals the fragile intersections between culture, economy, and power. This exploration of taste is not just about food. It is about memory, identity, and resistance against forces that seek to control the very fabric of human experience. To live the Renaissance spirit is to engage in this broader conversation, recognizing that knowledge, whether of flavors, history, or justice, is both a tool and a responsibility. Live the Renaissance spirit.
Vita, bella, bella.
Step off the boat, the sun kisses my face. The scent of lemons, oh, what a place. Nana's waving, pasta's on the stove, and my heart's already in love.
The piazza's alive, the church bells ring. A handsome Americano, what a charming thing. His eyes like espresso, so rich, so deep. He smiles, mamma mia, I feel weak.
Oh, il vino flows, the laughter flies. With every bite, amore ties.
Mangiare, assaporare, amare, abbracciare, memorizzare, ricordare.
Taste the pasta, taste the wine. Feel my hand right here in mine. Mangiare, assaporare, amare, abbracciare, memorizzare, ricordare. Kiss me once, kiss me twice. That's amore, that's life. Gelato melts as we walk through Rome. Her lips are sweeter than tiramisu at home. The scent of jasmine in the air so light. Perfettabilissima under moonlight.
Oh, his hands so warm, his touch so kind. With every dance I lose my mind.
Under the stars by the turquoise sea. Could this Americano stay with me?
The fountains sing, the night's a dream, and my heart's in love, or so it seems.
Mangiare, assaporare, oh, amare, abbracciare, memorizzare, ricordare. Taste the pasta, taste the wine. Feel my hand right here in mine. Mangiare, assaporare, amare, abbracciare, memorizzare, ricordare. Kiss me once, kiss me twice. That's amore, that's life.
Oh, bellissima, don't let me go.
Ma caro mio cuore, let's take it slow.
But life is short and love is grand.
Then hold me tight, don't lose my hand.
Mangiare, assaporare, oh, amare, abbracciare, memorizzare, ricordare.
One last dance, one last time. That's amore, that's life.
Questo è amore, questa è vita.
If I stay, do I get more kisses?
Only if you do the dishes.
Honey, I'm the one who cooked for you. Of course you get more kisses, and she can do the dishes.
Questo è amore, questa è vita.
If I stay, do I get more kisses?
Only if you do the dishes.
Honey, I'm the one who cooked for you. Of course you get more kisses, and she can do the dishes.